All right, so things are looking good, but right now the game is, I would say, quite easy because we have no enemies to worry about. So in this video, let's take a look at how we can add some enemies to our game. And actually, this is, depending how you want your game to play, ultimately, you're going to have a lot of options for modifying how enemies behave. So we'll look at several, and then you get to customize it to see how you fit, how it fits the way you want your game to work. So let's go ahead and jump into the code. So I'm going to get out of the way here. All right. So the first thing we've got to do is, locate an image for our enemy. And so I'm in my characters folder in the assets, and I have some different images that I was going to use for enemies, like these saw blade things. And so I'm just going to make all my enemies look like this enemy 2A for now. These are set up so I could animate it, but we're going to keep it easy in this video. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is go up here and load an image. And so that's easy enough. We just copy and paste one of those. We'll change it to an enemy image in the characters folder, and the file name was enemy 2A. The next thing I want to do is make an enemy class. And what I like to start thinking about is which one of these classes is most similar to an enemy? And I suppose it's going to be the hero. The difference is the hero is controlled by the keyboard and the enemy's going to have some kind of artificial intelligence. But I'm going to go ahead and just copy the initializer for the hero. And I'm leaving off that line for the gems because the enemies don't care about gems. They're not going to collect anything. And so I'll copy and paste this down after the rest of my classes and change this to enemy. And I don't think my enemies are going to jump either, so I'm going to get rid of that line. So that's good enough for now. We just want to get them drawn first. And so let's go ahead and let's see. We're going to go into the setup area, and this is where we add items in. So I'm going to copy and paste that. And I'm going to make a group for the enemies. And we'll call that enemy lopes. And I'll do 11.7. And let's see, we'll put one above. I'll do one at 12.4 above that platform. So 12.4. So we go through here. Let's see. This would be, change that to enemy locus. We're going to make that the enemy image. We want to add an enemy, not a gem. This variable name doesn't really matter, but I'll just change it to something that represents. So we're good there. So now we have our enemies in a group, and so last thing is don't forget to draw them. This is the easiest line of code to forget. Then you run it and you wonder, well, why didn't anything work? Okay, so I've got my enemies in the game. Obviously, there's no, oops, made a mistake here. Let's see. I put them into the items group, and then I tried to, when I touched one, it tried to call the apply function, which enemies don't have, but items do. So let's change that to enemies. Okay. And so we go right through them, but we haven't defined any interaction with the enemies yet. Also, the enemies aren't moving. So let's see what we can do to solve that. I'm going to go back to the enemy class, and this is just copy pasted from the hero. I want them to move a little bit slower than me. So I'm going to change the speed to 2 just so I can outrun enemies. This is one of those numbers. Play with it when you're writing your code until the game, just feels right. So you'll have to experiment once your game is, near complete to get that an appropriate number. We need some code in here to make the enemy move. So I'm going to go up to my hero class again. I'm back in the hero. And I'm going to grab this move and check platforms, and I'll go ahead and take check world edges as well. Okay, so my intention for the enemies is they're just going to go back and forth till they hit something. They'll either hit a block or the edge of the world, and then they'll turn around. And so we'll paste that in. And then, I don't know what I want to do with this yet, but we'll worry about if we have to make changes later, but I do know I need an update. And we only have 2 functions in our enemy, so I'm going to say self dot, we'll do move and check platforms, and we'll do self dot check world edges. Right, and then we go down to game loop, and just like we update the player, we'll have to update all the enemies in their group. So let's run this and watch what happens. Aha. And nobody's moving yet, so let's think about why. When I made my player class, right, I gave it a speed, but the initial velocity was 0 in the x direction and 0 in the y direction. And that's because these two numbers were set, are changed when the player pushes on the key. So the x velocity changes on the arrow keys, the y velocity changes when the player jumps. So what was happening in here is I just keep adding 0 to my x coordinate every iteration, and of course I'm not moving. So what I need to do is set the initial velocity to something related to the speed. And so I'm going to do -1 times speed. And the reason I chose -1 is because, I don't know, I think it's just typical when you play platform games that the enemies start out moving towards you and then they bounce off stuff. So they will all be moving to the left. If I got rid of this and kept it positive, then all the enemies would be moving to the right by default, when the game started. So let's see how this works. Okay, so now the enemies move, and a couple weird things, like this one just kept right on going in the air. And then when they hit the platform, or when they hit the world edge, they're not turning around, they just get stuck. Okay, and they're just behaving the way our player is, or the hero is. If they move in a way that makes them want to overlap a block, they just get nudged back a little bit, and then they're still. And same thing so the same thing happens on the world edges. My player tries to move off, and then we nudge it back before we do any drawing. So we need some code that makes these enemies actually turn around. And so I'm going to go in here, and this is when I hit something, and let's see. I am moving to the right because my x velocity is positive. So what I need to do is change my Vx to move me in the negative direction. So I'm going to say self.Vx is equal to, and I'll do -1 times self.speed. And then if I hit something, so here I'm moving to the left, so I need to make my velocity positive. So I'll say self.Vx is equal to self.speed. And let's see, we'll do in the check world edges as well. So here I'm moving to the left. So I got these in different order, but so this is where I need to make myself move to the right. So I'll say self.Vx is equal to self.speed. And right here, this is when I'm moving to the right and I hit something. So I've got to turn my velocity to move to the left. So I'll say self.Vx is equal to -1 times self.speed. So we'll run this, and that one turns around, and then let's make sure they turn around on world edges. And things almost look good, okay, but I think this one, I don't really want my enemies flying yet. Maybe I want some that will later. So I want gravity to apply to my enemies as well. So that's easy enough. I'm just going to go up to my hero, grab the apply gravity function, paste it into my enemy, and then let's, in the update, we'll just add self.apply gravity. And it falls off the edge, and everything looks like it's moving well. Okay, now you can see there's no interaction with the player yet. I'm not getting hurt. We haven't even decided what attributes the player is going to have that could make it get hurt. So it could be hearts or lives or whatever. And then we also have to think of, do I bounce off enemies? Do they push me out of the way? So we have quite a bit of thinking to do about how the player will actually interact with the enemy. So I'm going to end this video here, and in the next videos, what I want to do is, rather than show you a specific implementation that you should have in your game, is just give you a series of optional different things that could happen once you collide with an enemy. And then I think then you should take some time after watching those videos to just experiment with how your game plays until you settle on something that you like. All right, so that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and if you have any questions, please let me know.